Julie stepped out for a second, but what we wanted to do real fast is give you all a brief tutorial on the microphones. Kind of expecting more of you. And then you all get to kind of do roll call on your own. So just as a reminder for those who have used them and for those who are new, the microphones are set up that they should all be on in front of you. The one little short press of the button, the rectangular button will activate your microphone. Your microphone is active when it has a green light, at which point audio is being picked up. You may press it again to mute it. We do ask you to turn the microphones on when you are talking so that it can go through the sound system and then also get picked up on the recording that's on the screen. Okay. So also in order to kind of do introductions, if someone wants to start us off, maybe on that side of the room, we'll do roll calls if you want to just give your name and an interesting fact about yourself.
What?
What is the matter with you?
I never know.
We got our name on file in front of us.
So now you get an interesting fact.
Mr. Mayor, did you take over this meeting?
Apparently.
Interesting fact, my turn.
Yeah.
Angelita Sanchez, Sweet Home City Councilor. Interesting fact. We're planning a gubernatorial debate tomorrow for 13 candidates.
Susan Coleman, Sweet Home City Councilor. Interesting fact, I have red hair.
Whoops. Diane Gerson, City Councilor. Interesting fact, I guess I don't know how to use the mic.
Josh Listad, and I'm an amazing guy.
Greg Mahler, Mayor of Sweet Home. Found out that sleep is overrated.
Lisa Gorley, and I tend to be the most mic challenged in the room.
Hey, spouse counselors, I'm not special about anything.
I'm Christy Worcester, City Manager Pro Tem, and I moonlight as a hazelnut farmer.
This better be good.
I'm Brandon Dish. I'm the city's finance director. And this is actually my favorite season, that being budget season. So I'm really looking forward to this.
That was awful.
But that's not an official job.
Let's ask the folks in the back, go ahead and just verbally say something.
I'm Jason Ogden, captain of the police department. And against interesting fact, I have 6 kids.
Jeff Leonard, Sweet Home Police Department. Interesting fact, I no longer have 6 kids.
Was it a voting fan?
Greg Freeman, Public Works Director. I used to have red hair and 6 kids.
Okay, that's the last time you need to run this.
Touche.
The last.
Noted.
Okay, we, for the record, we have Kenneth Allen, David.
Loman.
Bowman, excuse me, and Bob Rihanna, and Derek Dix, this evening, that is not, really, it wasn't part of the meeting, was this evening, or something took place. And Counselor Dylan Richards is sick this evening, not able to make it, so, for the record of attendance. This time, we'll go ahead and turn it over for budget message presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Mahler, members of the Sweet Home City Council, Budget Committee members, and residents of the City of Sweet Home. It's my honor this evening to present to you the fiscal year budget beginning July 1, 2022, ending June 30th, 2023 for your review. The budget has been prepared to satisfy the legal requirements of the state of Oregon budget law, local government accounting standards, and the City of Sweet Home's financial policies. And if you're interested in looking at those are on page 26 of your budget materials. The overall budget for fiscal year 23 totals $28,609,139. We're very fortunate here in Sweet Home to be stable over the next 5 years to be able to complete several capital improvement projects, but we're going to need to remain conservative to ensure that we have adequate reserve in the event that unforeseen revenue losses or unanticipated expenses occur. The message highlights the activity of some of the major changes in the budgets this year, and I'm going to review those with you. The first in the area of our workforce and personnel. We continue to be, our staff is our most valuable resource that we have here at the city. And we're able to provide them with manageable cost of living increases in this year's budget. 3% going to the unrepresented staff. 3.25% going to the AFSCME represented staff. And then the police department right now is in the process of negotiating their current contract. So we don't know what that increase would be in the next fiscal year. We're fortunate not to have any increases this year in our medical insurance, dental coverage, or vision coverage, which is really a help to our bottom line. But we do have a few minor staffing changes proposed this year, and the details of those changes are on page 44 of your budget document. Let's talk about the general fund a little bit. The general fund is unrestricted, and it allocates money from property taxes, franchise fees, taxes, and other revenue fund services for the use in the Community and Economic Development Department, the municipal court, parks, as well as a portion of the executive, legislative, and non-departmental expenses. The total general fund budget this year is $3,697,717, which represents a decrease of $161,489 from our last year's budget. The decrease is required because we like to maintain a 6-month reserve over the next 5 years. And so when we put together our 5-year forecast, we needed to decrease some of our spending in this fund. We've reassigned staff to more closely align with the work that they're going to be doing this next year. But we've still been able to include some $170,000 in the general fund budget for some capital improvements that include improvements to North Side Park, the City Hall Park, some benches over at Hobart Natural Area, as well as dog park improvements. We have appropriated $50,000 in this fund towards building improvements at City Hall. And we've also included some funds to address security at the transitional housing site that will be owned and managed by FAC. Our current property tax permanent rate is approximately $1.41 per thousand. And this budget projects that will bring in about $740,000 in the next year's property tax receipts, which is about a $10,000 increase above what we estimate will be coming in to us in the form of tax revenues this year. We're going to need to be very, very careful in this fund as we move forward, because in this budget, even with the $161,489 decrease in spending, we are estimating that we are going to be spending down that ending fund balance by approximately $475,000. We're still able to maintain that six-month reserve, but we're spending down our ending fund balance, which is something that you need to really pay attention to over the next few years. In the area of our police levy, we're actually estimating a decrease in property tax revenues this year because staff is proposing that we only assess a portion of the levy this year. As many of you know, we've had a shortage in staff. We've had a lot of turnover within the department. And so in looking at the numbers, we don't need to assess the full value of the levy in the coming year to be able to meet the needs of the department. That being said, we still have a very healthy capital project budget in the police department of $220,000, which includes some projects to update some of the aging infrastructure that we have in the department, including a patrol vehicle and some building improvements and replacing the radio system repeater. With regard to the library levy, we estimate a slight increase in property taxes to be received this year. The revenue remains stable in the library fund, and based on the current levy rate of $1.17 per thousand. The expenses are anticipated to be slightly higher because we've appropriated $100,000 in this budget to hire an architect to prepare some preliminary concept drawings of the future library once the city council and the community has determined its permanent location or new location. In addition, the fund includes a transfer of $289,510 to the capital fund to be utilized towards future improvements. So we're setting money aside for future library or upgrades to the library, depending on what the council decides. With regard to our enterprise funds, those include water, sewer, and storm. These are going to be very busy departments this next year. We don't propose any rate increases in the area, in any of these areas. The highest priority project in water fund is going to be replacing some of those small diameter water mains around the city. And if you saw the newspaper today, I think there's 5 miles of those, which is pretty significant, as well as installation of a generator at the water treatment plant. These projects are going to be funded with the ARPA fund dollars that we receive from the federal government. The priorities in the sewer fund, no doubt, is our new wastewater treatment facility. And with that comes a number of additional upgrades, including influent pump station upgrades, new headworks with screens, a new primary clarifier, modifications to our aeration basin, a secondary clarifier, new pump stations, new tertiary filters, a UV disinfection system, a new peak flow outfall, a new primary anaerobic digester, new drying beds, and other ancillary improvements. So there's quite a number of things. We got $2 million from the state lottery funds back in 2017-19 biennium, and then another $7 million was awarded to the city in the 2019-21 biennium that was extended to 21-23. We have until June 30th to spend that money, June 30th of next year, 2023. We were also just recently notified that we have been awarded $30 million through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to help fund improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. Unfortunately, what we don't know at this point is how much of that is going to be given to us in the form of a loan and how much of it would be forgiven in a form of a grant. And we won't know that until late this summer, early fall. And so we've been careful not to recommend any changes until we know what that's going to be. Since that time, however, we're hearing that the costs of the plant continue to escalate and they're escalating out of control. So the council will be receiving a presentation from our engineer later this month. Right now, we believe we have adequate funds appropriated in this proposed budget to cover the cost of phase 1 improvements. But that could change as we go through our presentation. But as of the time that we wrote this, we had the funds in place to get going on phase 1, and we still anticipate that we'll be able to do that. We have so many capital projects, and there is a list of them in the budget document on page 203. And those total $12.8 million. And I've highlighted some of them above, but there are quite a few of them.
What page again, Kristen?
Page 203. With regard to our debt, our staff has been diligent and successful in refinancing the debt associated with $5.8 million in 21-22. Congratulations, Brandon, on that. This is going to result in a $769,000 savings or 12.1% savings over the life of the loans, which is great news. And it's important for the city to closely consider our priorities in leveraging our resources to provide the best services possible to the public. The staff looks forward to working with the budget committee and council during the budget process this year, and we want to thank you in advance for the numerous hours that you're going to spend going through this document. We've made an attempt to make it as transparent as possible and appreciate your guidance, support, and willingness to serve the city of Sweet Home community as you review and make budget decisions for fiscal year 22-23. In closing, I wanted to also thank the staff, especially our finance director, Brandon Nish, for the time they've spent in putting the budget document together that you'll be reviewing. It takes many hours to do the research, getting quotes and an idea of how much all of these projects are going to cost, putting all of that information together and getting it into the system so Brandon can look at it. And then Brandon and I spent several hours going through that. And I just really want to commend the staff for a job well done this year, because it's a huge undertaking, especially when you have the number of capital projects that we do. And management staff is going to be available to answer questions as we go through each of the funds. And again, we just want to thank you as you help us navigate the process this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Christie, and thank you for the city staff for putting this budget together. At this time, we'll turn it over to budget training.
So what we have done is found a nice little short 8-ish minute video for your viewing pleasure. Many of you are familiar with the budget process. For some of you that are new, this will be helpful information as far as what the role of this committee is, what a budget is, and how it will help the city. You don't really want to listen to me talk about that, so I'm going to let the Department of Revenue discuss that with you. And then we'll go through and do kind of a review of your document in front of you after that. So I'll leave you alone.
Welcome to Basic Local Budget Law. This is the first in a series of short videos that will explain various aspects of local budget law. Local budget law, found in Oregon Revised Statutes 294.305 through 294.565, outlines a specific process that most municipal corporations in Oregon must follow when creating and adopting their budget. A budget is a financial plan. Each municipal corporation operates within a fiscal year beginning July 1 and ending the following June 30th. Some may choose to budget and operate on a biennial basis or 24-month period, beginning July 1 of the first fiscal year and ending June 30th of the second fiscal year. The budget shows the estimated resources available and the requirements those resources are earmarked for. Requirements include the costs of items or services that the municipal corporation wants to purchase, also known as expenditures, as well as other obligations that must be planned for, but may not actually be spent, such as reserves. The budget resources and requirements must equal. In other words, the budget must balance. The budget is the basis for the municipal corporation's appropriation authority. Appropriations are the legal spending authority. Local budget law has very specific purposes that are outlined in statute. It establishes standard procedures. Every municipal corporation is required to follow the same steps to adopt their budget and present their budget details. It outlines programs and fiscal policies. The budget should describe the services the municipal corporation performs and the fiscal policies used to accomplish these services. It requires estimating resources, including taxes and expenditures. It forces financial planning. It encourages citizen involvement. Citizens can participate on the budget committee, attend public meetings and hearings, and make public comment on the budget. It controls the expenditure of public funds. When the budget is adopted, the municipal corporation will also adopt appropriations. The appropriations control expenditures by establishing spending limits. Without following local budget law, a municipal corporation cannot legally spend any money or impose property taxes. Additionally, the budget or the process used to adopt it can be challenged in court and some or all of the tax levy voided. The challenge can come from the county assessor, county court board of commissioners, the Department of Revenue, or 10 or more interested taxpayers. Public officials, including governing body members who spend money outside of the budget law process, can be held personally liable for the return of the money. This includes overexpending appropriations. Local budget law is a public process involving a variety of individuals and agencies. Municipal corporations are any county, city, port, school district, community college district, and all other public or quasi-public corporations that operate by a separate board or commission. Most municipal corporations in Oregon, from the smallest cemetery district to the largest city, must follow local budget law when preparing and adopting their budget. Municipal corporations provide services to citizens. They are required to create budgets showing the anticipated resources they will receive and where they plan to use those resources in order to provide their services. Many are allowed to impose taxes or fees within their boundary to pay for the services they provide. The Department of Revenue has general oversight of the property tax system. Because the majority of resources municipal corporations receive come from property taxes, the department has a prominent role in local budget law, including training local officials on local budget law, answering questions about local budget law and property taxes, in budget manuals and forms, reviewing tax certifications and budget resolutions, reviewing district budgets, and advising county assessors and tax collectors on property tax law. Citizens are a key part in the local budget law process. Local budget law requires citizen involvement and the approval of the budget through the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee consists of members of the local governing body, such as a city council or board of directors, and an equal number of citizen electors. All citizens may make comment related to budget at a public meeting or submit written comments to the Budget Committee or governing body regarding the proposed budget. All budget-related meetings are open to the public. Within the jurisdictional county of the municipal corporation, there are several offices involved. The county assessor is responsible for appraising property values, receiving and reviewing the tax certification, as well as calculating and assessing the taxes. The county tax collector sends tax statements to property owners and collects taxes. The county treasurer creates a tax distribution schedule based on the tax amount certified to the assessor and distributes the collected taxes to the municipal corporations. And the county clerk, who is the public record keeper for the county, receives a copy of the full budget document every year. They are also the chief elections officer in the county and assist municipal corporations with their tax elections. There are other agencies with a role in the process as well. The Department of Administrative Services, Secretary of State, and Municipal Debts Advisory Commission all contribute to the budget process. If the municipal corporation is located in Multnomah County, then they may utilize the services of the Tax Supervising Conservation Commission. Municipal corporations should also consult with any state agencies that have oversight of their programs. Some may have policies in place that impose additional requirements on the budget. Some special districts are not generally subject to all the requirements under local budget law. However, they must all adopt a budget and spending appropriations by June 30th. Some of these districts may become subject to local budget law if they intend to levy a property tax in the upcoming budget year. These special districts should consult with their formation statutes for any additional budgeting requirements. For many municipal corporations, property taxes are the main source of revenue. The budget law process is the start of the property tax cycle. The municipal corporation starts the cycle by adopting their budget by June 30th and certifying taxes to the assessor by July 15th. The assessor completes their work to appraise property and calculate taxes by September 25th. The tax collector then sends the tax bills by October 25th and collects the taxes. Oregon is on a trimester billing system, which allows taxpayers to pay their taxes in 3 installment payments. Taxpayers who pay in full by November 15th are given a 3% discount. The treasurer distributes the taxes paid to the municipal corporation based on the annual distribution schedule. As you explore more about local budget law, there are many resources available to you online, including Oregon Revised Statutes, Oregon administrative rules, local budget law manuals and publications, and property tax research reports. You can find most of this information on the Department of Revenue's website.
Do something. With that, right. One critical thing that we need to highlight is conversations outside of this meeting. Because this is an official committee of the city, any conversation outside of this committee amongst yourselves could end up falling into the public meeting law requirements. And so if there are conversations to be had, we encourage you to come in and talk to us if you have questions, and then have any of those conversations in these committee meetings, so that one, everything's on the record, and two, everybody gets to hear the same information. So be careful with text messages or emails, or even face-to-face interactions. Okay.
Thank you, Brandon. Normally I'd open the floor for nominations for the election of chair. Unfortunately, didn't have too many show up this evening for whatever reason. We've asked Chair Josh Thorstad if he would be willing to chair. He has agreed to be nominated as chair. So at this time, I'll ask, is there any other further nominations of this committee?
Well, you're stepping right in, aren't you?
Okay, the nominations are now closed. At this time, by roll call, nominate Josh Thorstad as chair.
Oh, right. I guess I'll do roll call because Julie doesn't have a microphone. So I'll just go to circle. Counselor Sanchez,
Yes.
Counselor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Gerson,
Yes.
Committee Member Thorstad,
Yes.
Mayor Molly,
Yes.
Counselor Gorley,
Yes.
Counselor Trask.
Yes.
Let the record show it's unanimous. Josh Thorstad as chair. Now open it up for vice chair nomination. I felt that committee member Smith Hamlin would be a good vice chair because he's chaired the last couple of years. So I'm throwing that as a nomination. And at this time, we'll ask for any other nominations for vice chair.
He's not here to defend himself.
That's the way it goes. I know you'd say yes.
Yes,
He was here. Okay, no other information. Let's do by roll call. We'll do the same thing going by around the table.
This time I'll start with Counselor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Gerson,
Yes.
Committee Member Thorstad,
Yes.
Mayor Mahler,
Yes.
Counselor Gorley,
Yes.
Counselor Trask,
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez.
Yes.
Let the record show is unanimous as Kenneth Chandler as vice chair. And at this time, is there anything further to be brought up?
We'd like to kind of roll through your budget books real quick, just to give you a brief overview of what you can find, how to find it, and give you a chance to ask any questions about how the book is formatted, before we get into the detail in future meetings. So with that said, most of you have a book in front of you. Some of you might be using the online version. We have two different ways to utilize or to go through this budget book.
My link is dead.
I should have pulled it up before now.
You made these letters any smaller?
I could have tried. So if you're visiting the budget book online, going to budget.sweethomor.gov, should take you to this page. Your internet might be down. And what you'll find when you land here is a couple of things. First off, the actual budget book for this current year, the proposed budget, is in this little box right here that says 2023 proposed budget. I will click on that in a minute to show you where it will take you. You will also find on here, if it is helpful for your records, a copy of the 2021-2022, so the current year operating budget, by clicking on the link here. So there is a copy of the previous year if you'd like to flip through that and remind yourself what we did last year. But because we're moving on to 2023, I will click on this link. And it will open our online version of our budget book. The navigation across the top will take you through all of the sections. The information you'll find online is the information that you will find in the printed copies if you have one of those. So have no fear that we're not changing anything online that you won't find in your paper documents. If we do make changes, we will alert you to those as we go through this process. Changes usually are instigated by somebody asking us a question that we're like, whoops. Or if we are flipping through this, as we have many times, and happen to find something else that we managed to miss. So while all of us do our best, we are human and occasionally mistakes are made. So we try to inform you at the beginning of each meeting if there are any changes that you should be aware of. With that said, the way that we have set up this budget book is similar to last year, at least in the beginning sections, your introduction section and your budget overview. So if you're looking at the table of contents, literally the first page when you open your book, all of the information in those first sections are the same as you could find them last year, just with updated information for the new proposal. A copy of Christie's letter leads the document, followed by the council's mission, vision, and goals. A city profile, which will give you some specific information on the city of Sweet Home, its residents, its population, kind of a history. Scrolling really fast through it because I know you're going to read it all. So just some general information about Sweet Home and its past. The demographics section in your book gives you a community profile, talks about what our population is. It gives you a total assessed value and total real market value, which is critical in our calculation for property taxes in the coming year. And then we have updated 2021 community statistics for each of these areas based on information from that calendar year. Down below is a populated section by the software that we use, but I think contains some very helpful information regarding population, the daytime population and population by age group. And it gets into our economic analysis and housing information within city limits. This uses data from the US Census website, specifically the American Community Survey that can be found on the Census Bureau's database. Moving forward, a listing of the budget committee. So the budget committee is established by state law. It is a committee of 14 members. It's supposed to be the local governing body, so the 7 counselors and an equal number of citizen participants. Unfortunately, we are 2 people short. So if you have folks that would like to volunteer to be on the committee, Let them know we still have openings. We love to see people here. This is a public process. That's my favorite part about the budget process in the state of Oregon, is that it's very open. Everybody should have a chance to have a say in how their dollars, their property tax dollars, their fees are being spent. And so we really cherish that here. I wish we had more people in the room. And so if you have folks that want to come and sit and watch us go through these proceedings, once we get into the meat and potatoes, or specifically the numbers, I really think that it's enlightening and very exciting to go through, and gives people a chance to have a say in how their funds are spent.
Brennan,
Yes,
do you have to be inside of city limits to be a part of the committee, or do you?
you do. So the budget committee per RSB specifically states you have to be a resident of the city,
Inside the city?
inside city limits, yeah. At the bottom of this is a listing of our administrative staff. Any one of these people can answer questions about their specific areas in this budget if you have questions. We do request that you kind of start with either Christie or I, because we can probably answer those questions for them, but there are going to be times where maybe Jeff, as police chief, is going to be able to answer a question better than I can. So we will certainly point you in that direction or get you the information. And then also distribute that information to the committee, because if you have the question, likely somebody else does as well. The rest of this information is just a lot of detail about budgeting process, our financial policies. One particular place I will point your attention is the accounting structure information. So in your budget book, if you're following along, that is page, oops, I clicked on it. That's going to be page 23 in your budget book. The first part of this gives you a lay of the land as far as what all of our funding sources are. In this budget, we have 28 funds that have revenues and expenditures for which we handle our operations. The first one at the top, the general fund, as Christy alluded to earlier, that's our discretionary. Sorry. Oh, boy. That's our discretionary fund. The restrictions on that are minimal. The budget committee and the council can really use that fund to leverage what it is they're looking for to accomplish within the city. It is primarily fed by two different funding sources: property taxes and fees for service, essentially. So you will find that information in there. We have some special revenue funds. Special revenue funds are items that we receive money for a specific purpose. So the public safety and the library levies each have their own fund so that their money stays separate and with those departments. And we budget in those as far as the expenditures are concerned. You can roll through this list. It has a description of kind of what the purpose of the fund is and its primary revenue source. And if you have any questions about any of that information, we're happy to answer them.
I do get to ask you a question right now.
If you have one, yes.
So on the street maintenance improvement fund,
Yes.
we didn't list grass tax. Is it supposed to be listed as a revenue for that fund?
So it is not.
Oh.
Fund 570 it had $1 million in it at one point, but it is a fund that was established after a road transfer from Lynn County, and they provided the city with appropriate funds to do some road maintenance on the section that they were handing over to us. The gas tax money comes into Fund 575. So you'll find that right below that, but that's where we receive the state's gas taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Page 31 in your document covers kind of a summary of what you will be looking at throughout this entire book. It's got all of our revenues listed out. These revenue and expenditure lines are the revenue expenditure lines that the state provides as part of the document that we have to publish once you all have made a decision on the budget at the end of this process. So property taxes, service charges, gifts, grants, and donations, internal service reimbursements, We have split out utility charges for service, so that's your water, sewer, and stormwater fees that folks pay. And we split that up only because we think that's informational for you to kind of see what revenue is coming in from utilities. And then all other revenues. As far as the expenditures, we list out personnel, materials and supplies, which is almost everything else under the sun, but office supplies, advertising costs, printing, any contracts that we enter into that are not related to a capital improvement project. You'll find all of that in the materials and service and so much more. The capital outlay is all of our major projects or any cost that, or any item that the city is going to purchase that exceeds $5,000. So that could be a new vehicle. It could be a new copier. I'm not finding any copiers for the record next year. But primarily what you'll find in that line is our overall projects. We'll go through those as we go through the funds. Our debt service payments for the following year, that includes principal and interest. Transfers we've listed as 0 because in a perfect world, and the way it should work, is you've got transfers out of one fund and transfers into another. They should always net. So we've put 0 there because they do net in this case. Contingencies. As you're flipping through this and reading through some of the policies, one of the things you'll find is that the city is required to hold a 4-month reserve at a minimum in our general fund, in our police levy fund, and our library levy fund. The reason for that is that 4 months is supposed to give you enough money to get until you get to November, when we start receiving our property tax revenues from the county. The council and budget committees of the past have really said 4 months is really tight. And auditors have also recommended something more in the realm of 6 months, 6 to 12 months. And so we have shot for 6 months, but not just 6 months in the current year, but 6 months, 5 years from now. So we try to forecast that, and we'll walk through that as we go through this. But the contingencies are there to cover unanticipated expenditures that may arise, changes in personnel, changes to a specific department if there's an emergency of some kind, or potentially money to fix a water main. Could be any of those. And lastly, the unappropriated ending fund balance. That number is what we anticipate ending the 2023 fiscal year. So as of June 30, 2023, if all goes exactly as we have in this book, that's what we anticipate having at the end of the year. You will also notice that revenues matches expense, which is one of the things the video indicated is how this process is supposed to go. After those pages, so 32 and let's see, 32 through 43 are just additional summaries. All of our items rolled up into one spot so that you can see them in one single place. Page 44 is a personnel summary that outlines our FTE plan for the next year, where we anticipate staffing. From there, we get into the actual detail. The way we have set the budget book up this year, or those of you that have done this previously, is a little bit different. I hope it's easier for you to go through to find the information you're looking for. We have set it up by fund this year. So we start off with our general fund and we go numerically through all of our funds. In some sections that have departments within those funds, so if you're looking at your table of contents on that first page, the general fund, we give you a detailed description of what's in the general fund, but then we break it down a little bit further for you for each of those departments that are in that fund. Community and economic development, municipal court, non-departmental, and parks. We will also, when we talk about the general fund, include some discussion on executive expenses that will land in that fund in the 2023 fiscal year. We've included transfers for you to review as well. The internal service fund is the other fund that is set up similarly in that we give you a roll-up, everything that's happening in the internal service fund, and then break it further down into the departments for your review. The last almost 100 pages include your capital plan for this next year, and then 5 years out, what staff is considering for the next 5 years. Our debt picture as it currently stands at the end of this current fiscal year. And then an appendix, which includes all of the requests that departments have made with a little more detail, and at the end, a glossary. With some words that as we've gone through this, folks have asked questions. What does this mean? If you have things to add to the glossary, let us know so that in the future we can throw those in. That's your budget book in a nutshell. A lot of information. I hope you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed putting it together.
You're a sick man.
Brandon,
Yes.
where can you find the appendices online? Appendices, I don't know how to say that. Whatever it is.
Good question. So online, each of these is a link, essentially. So instead of an appendix of sorts, you can click on the actual item in the capital improvement section, and it will give you the same description of that's in the appendix. I don't know where they put the glossary. So apparently if you're online, you don't get a glossary.
That's what Google is for.
That is what Google is for, yes. Are there any questions that I can answer about the construction of your book?
So this year we're going through in order. Do you have a tentative plan for which ones we should read before the next meeting?
All of them.
If it's me, I can't even make that joke. I love this, I like this book enough that I would read the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's a lot.
So.
Yeah, I am, you're right. So I can definitely say that we will do the general fund in the next meeting, the internal service fund. Actually, we will probably make our way through that. So we'll start with the general fund next time and work our way down through the internal service fund. At the next meeting, likely on the 19th of April. We have to discuss after this what our meeting schedule is going to look like. But then the following meeting, we will hopefully cover the rest of that information. Everything after the internal service fund, as far as community center, building reserve, special assessments, on down the list until you get to water, you'll find there's very little detail in that because there isn't much that happens in those funds. When we get to water and wastewater, certainly there will be elongated discussions we anticipate because there's a lot happening in that area. And I imagine that you'll have some questions for us and for Public Works Director Greg Springman, but they are very busy people, and you'll see that as you go through this book. So our goal would be the 2 meetings, start with general fund and work our way through internal service fund at our second meeting, and then do community center through economic development at our second meeting. And if necessary, have a 4th meeting after that to finish it up.
At this time, talking about dates, you have proposed down, and Christie asked if we can make one adjustment, April 19th, April 20th, and April 28th.
So while I realize you all don't love necessarily numbers as much as I do, although you all are here. We originally had these meetings set up for April 19th and April 21st to give you kind of a day in between. April 21st actually happens to be a planning commission meeting. So we are requesting to move that April 21st meeting to the 20th. So that means you'll meet Tuesday and Wednesday that week to go through the budget. It might not be bad because you won't have time in between that you'll forget all the information we give you in the first place. But we do understand also that that's a lot in 1 week. So we're hoping that you might be amenable to that schedule. But certainly if folks have conflicts, we should probably talk about it.
This time, do we have any conflicts or questions or comments regarding?
Well, I have another meeting, but I'll forego it this time. But why don't we use doodle polls?
We could. We have not in the past, but we certainly could.
It sure makes it easier.
We will consider that for the next round. And by considering that, we make it a lot easier.
So Brandon, I don't believe that in the last budget, you included the financial policy for the city.
Yes.
I find that very interesting because I think it renews what our goals are for that.
Sure.
I think everyone should read that policy before they, the budget.
The financial policy section does begin on page 28 or 26, sorry, if you have a printed packet. And you can find it in the navigation online under the introduction section. If you are looking also for the mission, vision, and the council goals, the current council goals, you can find that beginning on page 8. And that, we kind of frame this budget around what those goals are, all of what we put in here and the outcomes we expect to meet, relay or meet those council goals in some way. And as Councilor Gerson suggested, I definitely recommend we folks see that information as well. Is there,
Mr. Mayor, could you possibly give me the dates that we're gonna have again? The 19th and the 20th?
19th, 20th, and then if we need the meeting on the 28th, we would have it on the 20th.
Okay.
If everybody's okay with that.
Is there any objections to those dates?
We will work to get our missing friends to those as well.
So they might not have gotten the notification. By the way, Mr. Mayor, I thought that the chair decided what we were gonna do first and what we were gonna do second. That's the way it's always been, so.
I always said was, let's go Brandon.
Did we change that up so that, you know, he's not as important as he should be?
Yeah, you did a good job.
No, I'm not talking about Brandon, I'm talking about John, never mind.
He's gonna do a great job.
Thanks, Dave.
I have confidence in you, Josh. So if there's nothing further, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
You want to help me with my computer?
These are fancy.
Let me stop this.
You're done with these?